Today what we're going to do is do an efficiency test on the Tesla Model X and compare it to the Tesla Model 3. Now both cars were made in 2020 and they both share the same hardware in terms of the motors that are used in the cars. So it'll be quite interesting to see what a difference in efficiency there is between the two cars. We're going to have the same route as before, travelling from Edinburgh to Kinross and back again, and the conditions are very much similar as well, in that the temperature is around 18 or 19 degrees Celsius, which is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There is very little wind, and also there's no rain as well. So this is the route that we will be taking. The red triangle at the bottom of the screen is where I'm located right now. So we'll be travelling west towards Queensbury, crossing the Queensbury Bridge, or the Queensbury Crossing as it's called, and then over the River Forth, heading north and all the way up to Kinross services. Now that is 24 miles away, so the round trip will be 48 miles. Same route there, same route back, so it gives an even drive. In terms of the air conditioning, we will set the air conditioning to 20 degrees Celsius, which is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I've not got it on yet, obviously, because of the filming that we're doing now, but we'll set the air conditioning at 20 degrees Celsius, and because that's what we had on the last test. So next thing to do is to get started, and I'll meet you on the road as we approach the Queensbury Crossing, or just slightly before that. Now the Model X is often compared to the Range Rover, rather like the one that we have in front of us. Now the thing is, the Range Rover has an excellent off-road ability and it has excellent comfort levels. Now the Model X, on the other hand, has no off-road ability and none whatsoever, but obviously the comfort levels have improved over the last few years. Now when it was first introduced in 2016, I believe, that's when deliveries really started in earnest. The suspension system was not as good as it is now, but in 2019 they did a complete overhaul and they called it the Raven suspension system. I think that's what the term was, the Raven suspension system. And since then you have a lot more control over the adaptive suspension, in that you can raise the rise height, you can raise the height of the vehicle, and you can also adjust the comfort level and the handling of the vehicle. So up until now we're travelling at about 40 miles an hour, which is the limit for this road. Certainly not dip below that, but as we go on the speed limit should increase about 50, and then on the bridge it should increase to 70. But sometimes with the traffic, as you can see in the opposite direction, that can be quite difficult. So hopefully we won't hit traffic like this on the way in, and it should be fairly clear on the way out. So we're finally at 70 miles an hour now, but I have to say in the Model 3 test we were travelling a little bit slower at this time in the test, and what I'll do, I'll put an attachment at the end of this video where you can actually view the Model 3 test. But we're doing 70 miles an hour now. We're approaching the Queensbury Crossing shortly, and so hopefully we should be able to get over that bridge at 70 miles an hour as well. Now sometimes the speed limit is reduced if it's too windy perhaps, or if it's heavy rain, but we have none of that today, so we have everything in our favour. So here we are, just heading over the Queensbury Crossing. In case you didn't know, this bridge I think opened about 2 or 3 years ago now. You might be able to see the Forth Road Bridge on your right hand side in the frame. That's no longer used, unless I think it's only used for buses and taxis now, but it's not used for cars and trucks. So this is the main bridge, but the disadvantage of this bridge is that you can't walk across it, or you can't cycle across it. You can only cycle or walk across the Forth Road Bridge. I'm not sure if you can see the rail bridge, which is even more to the right, but if you can't, I'll try and drop in a frame of that so you can have a look at what that looks like as well. So we're just about to enter Kinross services, just the car park that is. It's a very narrow entrance, and you can see the scrape marks on the raised verge, and what we need to do is just find a place to park, and then we can go through some numbers. Right then, so here we are. Let's have a look at the numbers. But before we do that, I just want to show you the tire pressures, just to show that they are at the correct tire pressure. So we're at 44 psi. When we started, they were at 41 psi. So they've actually risen 3 psi after we've driven the 24 miles here. And the outside temperature has dropped though to 16 degrees Celsius. So that's 32, so that's 62 degrees Fahrenheit is dropped to. So let's get to the numbers then. So if we go to the trip meter and we look at the Kinross test, so we've driven a distance of 24 miles, 8 kilowatt hours used, or an average energy usage of 311 watt hours per mile. So as I said in other previous videos, it's very easy to convert this into kilowatts, or rather miles traveled per kilowatt hour. So how you do that is you either divide 24 by 8, which gives you roughly 3, but a more accurate way to do it would be 1000 divided by 311, and that will give you 3.07 miles traveled per kilowatt hour. And so that's exactly what that's the usage that we've had up until now, over 24 miles. So now what we'll do, we'll head straight back, and once we get to our start point again, we'll compare the figures. Now at this point, I think from memory, I think the Model 3 was giving us at least 4 miles traveled per kilowatt hour. In fact, I'm going to have to move from here quite soon, because this fence seems to be wanting to fall down, and I don't want it falling down on my car. So we'll see. So we'll see you on the motorway again, heading back to Edinburgh, and we'll go over the final figures then. Right, we're exactly 10 miles away from our destination. You can see the bridges in the foreground there. I must say, it's really quite blustery today, so maybe not quite, as I said earlier, apples for apples, apples for apples comparison to the Model 3, but it'll give us a fair indication of what the efficiency difference is. But one thing that I want to do just now, actually, I've just thought, what should we do is we should reduce the speed to 55 miles an hour for the next test, and see what the difference between the efficiency of this car is between 70 miles an hour and 55 miles an hour, and see if there is a difference or not. Well, there should be a difference, but how much of a difference there will be. So we'll do that in the next video, and so, you know, after you watch this one, I think it'd be quite interesting for you to watch the next one as well, to see if there is a difference or how much of a difference there is. So we're just crossing the bridge again. The speed limit has gone up to 70 miles an hour. That's what the national speed limit says. And so we should be home in about 17 minutes, and we'll go over the figures then. So this is the reason for the holdback, or rather the delay. Roadworks, but no workmen. And I'm sure this is a common problem worldwide, where roads are closed off for days on end, but no one's actually working on the road. Right, so we're back home now. So the question is, how much more efficient is a Model 3 over the Model X? And it is considerable, I think, because the final figures are that we travelled 49 miles using 15 kilowatt hours of energy, or 317 watt hours per mile. And if you want to convert that into a more useful unit, as in miles traveled per kilowatt hour, you just divide that by 1,000. So 1,000 divided by 317, that'll give you 3.15 miles traveled per kilowatt hour. Now that's quite efficient in itself for a car this size, certainly, if you compare it to, say, for instance, your Audi GTs and your Audi e-trons and you know, cars of a similar size and weight, it certainly it beats them all, in my opinion. But compared to Model 3, the Model 3 figure was 4.5 miles traveled per kilowatt hour, which is extremely efficient. In fact, it's probably one of the most efficient EVs out there. So that's your answer. 3.15 versus 4.5. So that's why effectively the Model 3 has a battery of about, I think it's 75 kilowatt hours, whereas this one has a battery of, I think it's 98 kilowatt hours, and the range is almost the same. So that's the end of this video, but what we are going to do is make another video just now, in fact, since we can rely on the same conditions, is reduce the top speed from 70 miles an hour to 55 miles an hour, and we'll make that video and we'll see what the difference is. So at the moment we're running at 317 watt hours per mile, or 3.15 miles traveled per kilowatt hour, and we'll see if it makes a difference if we reduce the speed to 55 miles an hour. There will be a difference, it's just a case of how much. So I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share, it really does help, and I'll leave that in your hands. Thanks very much for watching.